First and foremost, I want to thank everyone for coming out today. I also want to thank the people you see behind me. They are all supporters of the message that we're going to convey to everyone in San Antonio and the surrounding areas. We feel that the message is important and vital, especially during this time of year. The message that we're referring to is, of course, drinking and driving. We are here to inform the public of the rights and responsibilities that each of y'all have during this time of year, and actually during the entire year outside of the holiday season. The first thing we want to advocate to the citizens of San Antonio is don't drink and drive. Please do not drink and drive. That is the first and foremost way to protect the safety of yourself and other citizens driving in San Antonio. However, if you do plan on consuming alcohol during these festivities and this time of year, there are certain things that you can do to help the situation and to help safety of yourself and others. The first thing is to designate a driver. It's important to find somebody who's willing to drive you and your family or friends so that y'all can partake in the festivities. The other thing is, if you don't have a designated driver, it's important to use the services that are available, such as taxis and car services that are all over the city of San Antonio that are available to pick you up and take you home safely. Now, the other thing is that we want to inform you of the rights that you have should you find yourself in a situation with a DWI. Now, before we get started, we're here in front of the San Antonio Police Department. The reason that we're here is because we want to thank the officers of the San Antonio Police Department for the tremendous work that they do throughout the year, especially during this time of year as well. Their job is tireless, and they deserve as much credit as we can give them. However, we also need to let the citizens know, what are you to expect should you find yourself being pulled over by the officers? And what I want to do is tell you what your rights are and what are the responsibilities and roles of the officer. First and foremost, the thing you need to remember is that the officers are trained. They are trained to look for indicators of whether or not you have been drinking. Those indicators are you swerving left and right within the lane? Another indicator is, are you using your signal lights when you're changing your lane or you're turning down the street? Another indicator that I have seen is they look to see whether when you make a stop at the intersection, are you stopping too far into the intersection or not? These are all indicators that an officer will use to determine whether or not you have been drinking or not. So here's the process that you're looking at. The officer is following you. He determines whether or not you've been swerving left or right, or sees other indicators that you may be drinking. The vehicles are now equipped with dash cams. They will turn on that video and they will follow you for a couple of miles. In those couple of miles, they will determine, are you continually swerving in the lanes or doing other things that they feel are suspicious of you driving while intoxicated. At some point in time, they will then turn on their lights. They will then pull you over, and they will make their stop. Now, here's where we want to look at two things. One is, what is the responsibility of the officers during that stop? And two, and really kind of more importantly for you, is what are my rights during that stop? So, when the officer approaches you, there are certain things you need to do. First of all, stay in your vehicle, please. Second of all, be courteous and respectful to the officer. He is just there, or she is just there to do her job. Third of all, give them the information that they need. Your name, your address, your license, and proof of insurance. Those kind of things. One of the other things that the officer will do once he gets that initial information, he's required to ask you to perform certain tests. Everyone is aware of the kind of tests that I'm talking about. There's a field sobriety test. Those kind of tests include, can you walk heel to toe? There's a leg balancing test. And of course, there's the light in your eye to determine whether or not there's any indications of blood alcohol in your system. they're required to ask you to do these things. So then the question becomes on your part is, do I have to do them? What are my rights when the officer makes that stop? You can respectfully decline to do those tests. You have that right. You can tell that officer, I'm going to respectfully decline to do those tests, and that officer at that point has the obligation to inform you of what those consequences may be by declining to do those tests. Some of those will be your license will be automatically suspended at that point in time. At that point in time, once you decline to do these exams, you have then put the officer in a situation where he is now compelled to seek a warrant in order to get proof of your intoxication. How is that done? By a withdrawal of the blood in your system to find out what your blood alcohol content is. That is done downtown with a nurse involved to actually do that whole process. But remember, that is only done with a warrant. So it is important to understand that you have the right to say no. That decision is something that everyone must make on their own. Do I decide to do these tests, or do I decide to impose my right to say no? That is a decision that each of us must make if and when that time happens. Now, the other thing you need to understand is, as I mentioned, your actions are being recorded at the stop. So the reason I asked you to please be courteous and civil and do as the officer says is because those kind of things can be used, the recordings can be used against you if in fact charges are filed against you. So it's important to be respectful during the whole process. If you do find yourself being charged with a crime of either driving while intoxicated or driving under the influence of some other substance, it is vitally important that you seek legal representation. It is a serious matter. There are serious repercussions and consequences. There are many, many excellent attorneys in the San Antonio area that can help you. So in conclusion, what I want to stress again is all of us here in the community want to have a safe holiday season. How do we do that? Make a conscious decision not to drink and drive. Or if you are going to drink, designate a driver, use a taxi, use a car service. If you do find yourself at the side of the road being pulled over by an officer, please remember what are his responsibilities, but more importantly, what are your rights during the process of that stop. And with that, I'd like to thank everyone for coming this morning. On behalf of all the people behind me, we want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and more importantly, for a safe holiday season. Thank you.